Welcome one, welcome all to volume, I think 80 of the NFC East mixtape. I can easily say the worst of 80 episodes that we have recorded in the history of this great podcast. This podcast you can listen to in any of the 4 SB Nation NFC East team blogs. That's the NFC Beast to any other divisions, by the way. Big Blue View for New York Giants coverage, Hogs Haven for the Washington Commanders, Blogging the Boys for Dallas Cowboys, and Bleeding Green Nation for the last undefeated team in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles, the winners of the NFC East Bowl, part 1, at least on Sunday night. You can also watch this show on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel. If you're doing that, I imagine you have been made happy in the first 41 seconds. You can watch it on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel as well. And if you are, you will see that I am a man of my word. I am RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys. He is Brandon Lee Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation. BLG, congratulations, 26-17. Philadelphia Eagles got the first one.
It's not going to be a good podcast for you, RJ. It's not going to be a good one. A lot of people are waiting for this one. And I will say, to your credit, the one thing I will give you credit and respect for is, just like me, when the Cowboys beat the Eagles last year, we pay up our bets. We're not Pete Sweeney here, who dips out. I mean, he deserves that shot, honestly.
I mean, like, I'm just saying, like, that's, hey, but he's a co-host of mine, just the way you are. If somebody said something
true
about you somewhere, I would at least give you an ooh. You know what I mean? Like, I would
that's
go
fine.
that much
I'm
to
saying
bat for you.
It's objectively true, though. He did not live up to the bet. Like, whether you think that's cool or not, I mean, he didn't do it. Anyway, so we do that here. Eagles were my lock of the week, RJ. I knew they were going to beat the Dallas Cowboys. Not only beat them, but cover as well. Mm-hmm. I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to hear anything about, moral victory or, whatever. Like, we didn't have Dak. No. I saw all of the writers, almost all of the writers, maybe not every single one. Most of the writers at bloggingtheboys.com were picking the Cowboys to beat the Eagles. You picked the Cowboys to beat the Eagles. I want to hear, like, they were going to lose anyway. No, that is BS. It doesn't matter that they came back into the game when the Eagles had to get the points. They did, as they've done all time. I don't want to hear anything like, the Eagles, there's some cracks in the armor. Eagles have led by 14 points in every single game this season. They have not trailed in the second half of a game this season. They are one of the very best teams, legit. I don't know why I have to justify that when they're 6-0. And also, even if all of that was valid when it comes to, like, the Cowboys are, whatever. Like, the Cowboys, this is actually
okay.
The Cowboys, this is a concerning game for the Eagles because the Cowboys, kind of played it close. BS. Because even if that's your biggest takeaway, this loss was really big in terms of playoff implications. This is huge when you look at the percentages, and I'll wrap this up here so you can kind of get your reaction in. But the Eagles winning this game, according to Football Outsiders, and this was posted before the game, mind you.
Oh, this is objectively true as well.
If you look at, like, what a Cowboys win would have meant, their odds of winning the NFC East would have gone up to 45%. Their odds of winning the 1 seed, this is the Cowboys now, would have been at 28%. That's down to 10% and 8%. Or sorry, no, it's 10 and 6% respectively now. The Eagles jumped up to 87% of winning the East with the win over the Cowboys, and 73% for the 1 seed. That is huge. The implications of this game were huge. So even if they won by 1 point and they look terrible and they look worse than the Cowboys, doesn't matter. This win was massive.
So first of all, you have every right to gloat. And I want to be very, very clear about a couple of things here. We obviously have a lot to get to. I mean, we have the freaking 5-1 New York Giants to get to as well. Like, who would have thought when we founded the NFC East mixtape that all of a sudden we were going to be busy with all sorts of, winning to get to? It's been quite the ride. But first of all, we got to this a little bit too late, but a very happy birthday to you, Brandon. It's seriously the week of BLG. Great vibes for the Eagles. I said this on Monday Football Monday on the SB Nation NFL show. What a great time to be an Eagles fan in general, because your Eagles are 6-0 with this big win against the Cowboys. You get to be off for 2 weeks while you get to watch the Phillies in the NLCS. Yeah. Like, just a perfect lineup of sports energy for you if you are a Philly diehard like you certainly are, and a happy birthday to you as well. So just a great time to be Brandon Gowton. And I think everything you said for the most part has very, very legitimate amounts of truth to it. But I think you lost sight of something that we love to say, and that's that multiple things can be true. So I'm trying to come here with all things that I believe are true. Now, are you ready? Like, I don't have like a list. I thought about putting together some notes, but I thought this would be better if we just kind of went at it like natural, like off the cuff, if you'll allow me. So the first thing that can be true And I think some Cowboys fans lose sight of this. And Blogging the Boys audience, I'm sorry, but I will tell you, I have been incredibly annoyed and pestered by Eagles fans in my mentions. It is a disaster. It is a war zone in my mentions and my DMs right now. All right. Like all these Eagles fans coming at me, taking their victory laps. And you know what? Respect. This is why we love sports. This is it, right? Like for when you win a game like this, to tell the other team how stupid they are, right? To tell them how much they suck. Like, so do it. Like I respect that. I don't have but again, I do think there are multiple things that are true. So it isn't just like the Eagles are the best team in the world, the Cowboys are the worst team in the world. Now, I do think that some people don't listen to the NFC's mixtape. All right. And shame on them in a lot of ways in life. But there are a lot of people saying like, oh, Cowboys fans weren't saying that Cooper Rush was a problem during the 4-game winning streak. Who said, like, who, you know what I mean? Like, that's where, like, let's remain connected to reality here. And there's a lot of, most of the reality is very positive towards the Eagles. But there was not a Cowboys fan out there, a rational one at least, that was saying like, oh, this team is on fire. This team's never going to lose a game. This offense is on fire. I mean, I'm not asking for credit, but like, was this not sort of the Cooper Rush that we all kind of talked about here on the mixtape, that I talked about? Did I not say that he was not built to come back from a deficit? And I give him credit and the Cowboys credit for narrowing it. That doesn't mean the Eagles suck. But I do think that that is a commendable thing because they did it against one of the very best teams in the NFL, if not the very best one in the Eagles.
Yeah, I don't think you were saying that, but again, a lot of people are still picking, at least on the Cowboys side of things.
I think here the reason I think people pick the Cowboys is because like when was the last time you picked, the Eagles when they were legitimate to lose to the Cowboys? Like this to me, and this is not some sort of like copium, but this feels like, at least the way I feel, reminds me of the way I thought you felt after the Week 3 game last year. Because and the teams are not in the same spot, but at that time the Eagles were 1-1, right? At Week 3 last year. At that time, the Eagles had not found this like rushing identity, like, having all this success through the run. There was still all this question of like, well, who's Nick Sirianni? How are they going to be? Blah, 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 blah. So when you lost, I mean, yeah, you paid up on the bet, respect, all that is true. But it was also this kind of like, well, I mean, like, what did we expect? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we didn't think that like the Cowboys were this really promising team at the time. They'd been a lot of, things offensively at that point of the season. And so I don't think you were shocked. You were bummed, but I don't think you were shocked. And that's how I think Cowboys fans feel. So I think they talked themselves into picking the Cowboys because they had won these 4 games, because the defense had done all these miraculous things. But there were a lot of holes, legitimate ones, to poke in it as they were winning games. I mean, they were playing some, suspect offenses, and all of it was inflated by, the 2 Super Bowl teams, division rivals, prime time, blah, blah, blah. But all of it was true. Multiple things have been true, still are true, and will always be true. And so I think it was fair to pick the Cowboys. I at least thought the Cowboys would cover. That didn't happen, even though the spread was incredibly large. And I think the Eagles deserve a lot of credit for that. I think the best drive that any team has put together so far this season, I think you could have made an argument that it was Daniel Jones for the Giants in London, but it was the Eagles when Dallas made it 2017. That was a big time. Hey, you're not always going to like have success. You're not going to have success for an entire football game, an entire quarter, whatever. But when you have to have it, they had it, and good for them. I mean, so I think that they are an incredible team, and there's a lot to take away from it. But I don't fault anybody for picking the Cowboys, at least coming from a Cowboys perspective, because there were some legitimate things there. And I think that those things are still legitimate today.
Yeah, I mean, the NFC as a whole is obviously so weak. I'm not saying the Cowboys are the worst team. That's not the argument here. I'm just saying, like, to my point about going into this game, feeling like it's a lock. And when you were kind of getting excited earlier in the season, and I get why, because you were like, okay, the season's not going to be a disaster. So I'm really happy. But to me, it just felt like empty. Because I'm like, okay, but there's still a really good team in the same division ahead of you that hasn't lost and is better and has a better outlook and certainly has an easy schedule as well. And now is coasting to a 1 seed, which is a big freaking deal. So I just think that has to limit the Cowboys' optimism at some level, not even though it has nothing to do with them directly, but because that exists also. So that's something. To your point about the drive, huge, massive. And that's something the Eagles have done all season. Like, it's like, when we need this thing, we're going to do it. And I think it's not just fluky too. It's like, it really goes back to the strength of the team, which is the offensive line. The offensive line is like, hey, we're taking over the game here. You're not going to be able to stop us. We're going to run the ball on you. We're going to mix in the passing game when we need to, and good luck. And the Eagles didn't even have their best player, arguably, on the team, or at least one of the very best, in Lane Johnson, who left the game, which is a big deal. They're always
very big deal.
It's like the Tyron Smith effect. So obviously that's a bit, obviously he's missing for the Cowboys, but he has this huge impact, especially specifically going up against Micah Parsons. I mean, like that's a huge, matchup.
They neutralized him. I've never seen. I mean, Micah's got a very young career, but I've never seen him be neutralized the way he was against the Eagles.
Not just the offensive line too. I want to give them credit, but I thought the coaching staff like schemed him out of the game. Some of those plays the Eagles were running where they had AJ Brown coming in motion, and then Parsons was in conflict, and then like AJ Brown would just run by him. They did it twice. They did it on the 4th and 3 that they converted, and then they came back to it with the touchdown. That was so impressive to me, and that was like, wow, like they're just this is Cowboys are getting out coached right now. That is coaching right there.
I don't think that's out coaching, because I think and that's not like caping for the Cowboys. I just think it's impossible to defend. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that like you're right. The Eagles coaching staff deserves a lot of credit, but I think Jalen Hurts deserves a lot of credit. I mean, I think AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, like I think like they happen to be really good players. I mean, so it is, and that was the broadcast talked about that. People have talked about it in the days since. Like, it is a thing that is impossible to defend. You can be literally what Micah Parsons is, one of the most talented, athletic, dominating defensive players in the game, and not be able to stop that. Like that's what I'm saying. Like, multiple things can be true. It could be true that Micah is still just as great as he was, but that it is that difficult to stop. So I think the Eagles just deserve all credit. I don't think that that's like, oh, the Cowboys suck. I think that's just a really great thing the Eagles did.
I don't think I've said the Cowboys suck. I think, they're one of the few teams in the NFL you can actually say that's like not trash. I think there's so many teams in the power rankings that are just really bad. Like the Cowboys have a
nice
case.
Nice tweet, Brandon. Nice tweet.
Yeah, I had to tweet it during the show. You can follow me at Brandon Gowton to see the tweet that you've probably already seen at this point.
You couldn't even like I've worked so hard to like throw flowers, and you couldn't even get a good screenshot of me. Like, I had to be like mid talk. You know what I mean? Like,
it's hard.
I mean, you could have said, like,
I was bored. I wanted to do something.
You could have said, hey, like, let's pause for a moment so you can at least like, whatever. But
I wanted to highlight some impressive things about the Eagles' performance. One of them being, the Cowboys came into this game. They hadn't allowed a multi-touchdown game. Eagles scored 3 touchdowns. That's a big deal.
Well, they took care of that multi-touchdown thing early. Like, it wasn't like they got their second one in the 4th quarter or something.
They scored on 4 of their first 5 drives. The last drive they had 6 drives in the first half. The last one was just a kneel down. Could have went for points there, decided not to. So I thought that was really impressive. You look at Jalen Hurts. It's not like he like carried the team with his arm, but he played his brand of winning football in general, which is and I think this goes to that drive, by the way. I think there's absolutely something to, and I wrote about this in my winner and losers column on Bleeding Green Nation. Like, people always talked about Nick Foles. Like, part of what made him so good during the run, he had this calming effect. Everyone was like, they weren't worried. No one was like frazzled or worried, even when the Eagles got into like a tough spot, because the leader of the team at that point and the starting quarterback was just calm, even, steady. And I think that's part of why the Eagles are having success on these drives in these must-have moments, because the team looks composed. They don't look rattled at all. And Jalen Hurts goes out there and quietly executes. And again, for him to not really carry the team, but to have this good, efficient game where he didn't turn the ball over. He had the best, like if you just go by passer rating, the highest passer rating against the Cowboys this year outside of Jalen Hurts, who had
that's a low bar to clear, but still, like, he was impressive. I mean,
I'll just read all of them real quick. Tom Brady, 87.3, Joe Burrow, 89.9. That was the second highest one behind Hurts now. Daniel Jones, 57.9. Carson Wentz, 56.7. Naturally, he had the worst. Matthew Stafford, 86.2. Cowboys defense really good, obviously. Like, held these and no quarterback. Speaking about the multi-touchdown thing, had more than 1 touchdown pass. Jalen Hurts had 2. So, it's not like he lit the world on fire. It's not like he's going to be NFC Offensive Player of the Week, but this was a really important game for him too, especially as we talked about heading into the matchup, a player who had previously not done well against the Cowboys. For him to have this game and lead the team to victory was big.
So I think, like, this is going to sound like an insult, but I mean it in the most complimentary way possible. It was a very hear me out, and I don't think you'll be as upset about it as our other co-host Rob Stats Guerrero would. It was a very Jimmy Garoppolo sort of performance from Jalen in terms of like masterfully executing the game plan. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all Jimmy Garoppolo's. That's why like Kyle Shanahan loves him, right? Because he's just like somebody who will go execute what Kyle wants to do. I'm not in any way comparing their athletic profiles or their abilities as a quarterback. I just think that Jalen is that in sync. I think the coaching staff has gotten on such a strong same page with him, identified his strengths and built a game plan that works for him and that leans into his skill sets. And it was difficult for the Cowboys to stop. I mean, this all lent itself, and this benefited obviously the Eagles in every single way. But this was the game the Cowboys had not had, and obviously the fact that they lost. But the turnovers, turned it over 3 times. And I don't know why Mike McCarthy, I can't answer. He answered, and I don't find it satisfactory. I don't know why he didn't challenge the CeeDee Lamb spot. I know you were at the game, but watching on the broadcast, it seemed very obvious that it was a first down.
It was a bad spot. I rewatched that. Yeah, during the game, I couldn't, I'm not the benefit of the yellow line, but you're right. That was a very bad spot.
Right. And so, whatever. I'm not saying like, they win the game if that was whatever, but
sure.
You have to.
And bad spots happen. Like spotting the football is harder than,
right.
Let's say, I want to bring this up to you. This is very important to me. What the heck was that picking up the flag on the blocking the in the back on Tony Pollard?
I have no idea.
How can you possibly argue that was not a penalty? And so whatever argument part, whatever. How can you pick it up?
I don't know that I don't believe in the idea of makeup calls in general. Like, I think the only time I've ever truly believed in it was Monday Night Football last week when the officials had gotten spooked by Arrowhead. But I mean, call it a makeup call if you want it, but it was a very clear foul. I mean, so that worked out for the Cowboys.
And it was a high leverage play in the sense that would have been 2nd and 19 from the Eagles 46 instead of 1st and 10 at the 20. That's a huge swing. That's like
I don't want to poke holes at penalties because there's some moments where the Eagles were not called for things that I would argue maybe and I'm not saying there were 100 of them, but again, that's circumstantial to me. I think the important parts of what happened. And so I wanted to get to this. The Cowboys played the game that they couldn't play, and they couldn't play this game with Cooper Rush, and they managed to not do it 4 games in a row, which is incredible. These are their first these are the Eagles' possessions against the Cowboys. They had the punt, obviously, to start off, and then the touchdown where they traveled 80 yards. Respect, obviously, very well done. Next touchdown, they started on the Dallas 44-yard line because of the interception. I mean, so you cannot you can have the best defense in the world, and I don't know that I'm not saying Dallas is number 1. I think we both think that they're certainly in contention, but you can be the best defense in the world, and if you only have 44 yards to defend, it's a much more difficult thing than if you have 80. That's just simple math. The next Eagles possession started on the Dallas 34-yard line. Next, Dallas 46-yard line. 3 possessions in a row that the Eagles started across the 50-yard line. You just can't do that. You can't do that against anyone, let alone against one of the best offenses in the NFL. And that is where the game was lost. And that's obviously where Philly built their lead, and then they were able to kind of withstand, the little comeback in the third quarter. But that had not happened. And so, people are like, well, what happened? How did the Cowboys lose Cooper Rush? That was it. They managed to, thread a needle for 4 weeks in a row, and they benefited, the way a lot of teams do from some poor teams and some poor quality opponents, but they managed to not do those things. And one of those possessions was the 4th down that Mike McCarthy should have, taken a look at, whatever. That was the only time I ever felt, the only take that you had that I don't think was proven all the way right was this Phillies crowd thing. The Cowboys, I don't think were intimidated by the crowd. I do think that the rush after, no pun intended, after the bad spot was panic. That was because they were down big. That was we got to have something. Let's just hurry. Let's get it done. Let's not risk this. That was the only time that the moment seemed a little big for them. Other than that, I think they just got beat.
I can't. Is McCarthy catching heat for kicking a field goal at the end of the first half there? Because I thought that was terrible. Are you kidding me? You made a 3-score game a 3-score game. Congrats. You're a 6.5 point underdogs on the road. You're down 20-0. Really?
No,
you're not going to go for a touchdown there.
People are upset about
That's terrible. How many times are you going to drive down the field with Cooper Rush? Come on.
I mean, I agree with that, but I mean, I think people had kind of understood the situation, and that's where look, by all means, annoy every Cowboys fan, be relentless. I greatly respect that about Eagles fans, and I mean that seriously. But that's where I think I speak for every Cowboys fan. We're all bummed. It's annoying. It's frustrating, but I don't think any of us are shocked. That's so I think everyone at that the moment you're talking about, I think people had kind of maybe not waved the white flag, and the comeback kind of roped people back in. But I think people were well, this was inevitable, right? The shoe had to drop. At some point, crap had to hit the fan, and it was doing that. I mean, it just kind of made sense. And I think everybody at that point, halftime was making peace with hey, they went 4-1 with Cooper Rush. How, what right do we have to be mad about this? I think that's where most logical people are at.
Yeah, I just think that's downplaying the magnitude of the game. Huge game.
No, but that's where I'm back to multiple things can be true. Everything you said is 100% accurate. This
I know you're not disagreeing with it, but the energy I'm getting is the Cowboys will be fine. They'll play again. It doesn't okay, they're gonna play again, but a lot of damage has already been done.
But see, if the conversation is damage with regards to winning the NFC East, 100%, you're right. A lot of this is a big blow to that, right? But I mean, when you add,
we're not just talking about the East, we're talking about one seed.
Okay, but again, when you apply the context of this team and because again, multiple things can be true, and something else that we say a lot is things change, right? Circumstances change, data changes, whatever. And so at the end of week 1, like it was true that this team was done, right? The Cowboys, right? Not the Eagles, right? Everything that I poked at kind of like showed its ugly head in the week 1 loss. And to their credit, and they buckled down. They got 4 wins in a row. Good for them. The calculus has changed. The variables have changed. The NFC, the NFL in general is down, right? Like, I mean, you and I can both agree. You said yourself, they're one of the 5 teams in the NFL that don't look like utter trash. I mean, so I think I don't in any way, shape, or form think or condone Cowboys fans being like, it's okay if we don't win the NFC East. We'll be a playoff team. But like the barometer has changed. The status has changed. Like they are, pick a measurement, DVOA, DYAR, like any kind of measurement. They are one of the best teams in the NFL right now with one of the worst offenses in the NFL right now. So I think people are really excited, and this doesn't diminish that about, okay, hey, look, they're 4-2. They lost a game to what might be the best team in the NFL. They're about to get a top 10 quarterback back. That significantly changes who they're going to be. It's frustrating that they couldn't pull this one off, but it was going to be a difficult thing nonetheless.
So one of the things we also say in this show is I am never wrong. And I think I had a lot of good takes going into the game. When it came to, I was like, Cooper Rush is going to turn the ball over. Like, we all know this is going to happen because he hasn't done it yet. Of course
it was going to happen. It was always, he should have thrown 2 interceptions against the Commanders. They were wiped out due to penalty. He put 2 balls on the ground against the Rams. He recovered 1. Tyler Smith recovered the other. It was inevitable. This was going to happen.
That said, I don't think it's just a matter of like, I've seen, so I brought this up on BGN Radio with Jimmy. There was a play when the Eagles played the 49ers in 2020 where I think it was CJ Beathard at that point, threw an interception literally to Alex Singleton for a pick 6. He literally just threw it at him. There wasn't even any kind of receiver in the area, just some inexplicable. That was not the case here. Like one of the other big points I made going into the game, this is the best secondary really the Eagles have had going into a Cowboys matchup in a long time. And I thought the secondary players weren't just like benefiting off of really bad, like, whatever dropped passes that turned into picks or whatever. Like they made plays. Darius Slay ran his route for Michael Gallup, and that resulted in a pick. James Bradberry, oh my gosh, that dude. So I guess we'll talk about the Giants in a bit, but like, you're the Giants. Are you kicking yourselves? You cut that guy?
I thought about that a lot, but
he's like,
okay. But like,
so let me read the stat for you. I don't know if you saw this. By NFL Next Gen Stats, James Bradberry has allowed fewer yards than any cornerback in the NFL this entire season. And it's not even close. Like he's been an elite level cornerback. So I thought that aged well. The defense stepped up. I don't think they were. I do think if you're going to poke a hole at the Eagles, it could be, well, what happens when the turnovers dry up? To some extent, yes, I agree. That is a concern. At the same time, I don't think it's just like they're merely benefiting off of fluky turnovers. They have playmakers in the secondary who are good. Like they're gonna be able to force these at some rate, maybe not as high of a rate, and we'll see. What do you want to say? And then I have a question for you after that.
Well, I guess like along those lines, again, multiple things can be true. Like that, we could title any episode that, but I mean, I'm not sitting here like there's a lot of like, oh, Dak wins that game. I don't know what happens if Dak Prescott plays, but they're far more competitive. We obviously everybody
more competitive, but yes, it's not just like a lock.
Like that's on. I mean, again, we're saying the same thing, but to that point, like that's why like I said this with John Stolnis on Eye on the Enemy on y'all's feed. I was not afraid of Darius Slay or James Bradberry because, and I know Cooper Rush threw 3 interceptions, but like, of course, like, you know what I mean? Like my like banking on the Cowboys winning this game did not rest on Cooper Rush's arm. You know what I'm saying? So like and that's in that sense, like this isn't the most impressive Eagles win of the season to me. They have 6 wins. So pick one, but like the worst I felt from like oh crap, the Eagles are really good standpoint was after they destroyed the Vikings because they destroyed an offense operating at its peak. This is not the peak version of the Cowboys. Good for the Eagles. They had their way with Cooper Rush, and nobody else really had to this point, but he hadn't really had to do anything. He threw the ball like 10 times against the Rams last week. So I'm very interested from a football fan standpoint, obviously from a Cowboys slant, but just to see what the Dak-led Cowboys look like this, because I also am curious to see what Dak looks like. I mean, we haven't seen this dude really effectively all of the season, and he was really bad over the second half of last year, but he obviously significantly improves these odds. I mean, it feels, and this isn't like shying away from the loss, but it feels like a half loss. It's a full loss, and it's massive, and it puts the Eagles in the front running seat, or not front running, in the like controlling seat, driver's seat, whatever, to win the division. Certainly helps them boost their odds to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. There is incredible value in those things. I'm not diminishing that at all, but like the Cowboys already, like, for 5 weeks in a row, they've had 1 foot in a loss already. They've managed to pull that out 4 times. It just was not going to happen now. So I'm excited to see them kind of start above water with, and I hate that because I hate that, like, this sends Cooper Rush out with a whimper, because what he did was incredible. Like, they're going to be a playoff team in all likelihood this season, largely because he managed to keep the ship afloat for 5 weeks. Most backup quarterbacks in the NFL are not capable of that.
I do agree from a standpoint, like, it might not be their most impressive in style points. Obviously, I think it's their most important win, again, in terms of impact.
That's
and
true
playoff leverage.
too. But yeah, like, okay, good. You beat the Cooper Rush Cowboys. You should. But, like, I thought the Vikings would win that game. I thought that Justin Jefferson would. That's an impressive performance to me by the Eagles secondary. Is like locking down Justin Jefferson. Like, I think CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup are great.
All right, let me finish my point.
It's not a fair fight.
Yeah. I wasn't even, like, arguing. That wasn't an argument. I'm just saying I wanted to make the distinction. I think you can say not most impressive, but it is most important. And then I think the scary thing about the Eagles is that this could be, they haven't even played a complete game yet. Like, they haven't hit. We haven't seen them firing on all cylinders.
Who does
just yet?
Like, that's where I think there's that criticism of the Eagles is unfair, I think, because people are, and, like, I've said that to some degree,
I agree.
But it's like, people are like, oh, well, they like, what was it? Like, they hadn't scored any, like, second half points or whatever the thing was. It's like, okay, well, like, who's just, like, scoring touchdowns on every possession? Like,
but I think there's something to that. I think the Eagles have not hit their ceiling yet, is what I'm trying to say. I think you can make the case they have not done that, which is scary for a team that's undefeated. I think they're still figuring some things out. I still think they can click better in certain areas. It's insane how they are leading NFL history. No other team in NFL history has scored as many points in one single quarter that the Eagles have in the second quarter as, like, ever. That's insane. It's a crazy stat. I don't know what that is. I think I was theorizing with Jimmy. Maybe there's something to, they're really good at, like, kind of throwing some things out early in the game, then kind of taking that information and kind of figuring out how the opponent's going to react to that, and then, really kind of go hard and attack things at that point. I don't know for sure, but let's say, like, they keep doing that, and maybe there's some regression there, but I think they can figure out some of the second half stuff, or maybe they get into games where they need to do it more, and they can, because they've proven that.
Like, I think what it is like, people talk about, like, oh, well, of course they scored on their first, like, people said this about Kellen Moore, like, oh, well, it's his opening game script. He spent all week working on it. Right. Like, it should be really good. Right. So I think
why is that a discredit?
No, I know. But, like, my point is, like, and I'm not saying this is the case, but, like, if it, maybe they're like, okay, let's just, like, work really hard all week and, like, build a massive lead in the first half. And then, like, the 20 minutes we have at halftime won't be so stressful. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because you can do more work in the week on tape study and preparation, and planning and scheming things that you want to happen in an entire half than you can do in 20 minutes when you, like, there is obviously an incredible, value towards adjusting to what you've seen in the game, but, like, don't bank on that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't think that's a flaw of theirs. I don't know that it's sustainable, but it has been so far. Like, it's difficult to argue with the results.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it. It's very interesting and intriguing.
You had a question.
Yeah, my question for you was, like, what is your biggest concern, I guess, coming out of this game? Not just that, and obviously we talked about the impact of the loss, but I mean about the Cowboys specifically moving forward. Even because my sense is that, like, you're not concerned about a ton. I would say, before you answer, one of my biggest questions for them is how Dak looks, because I know it's easy to be like, Dak's back, everything's fixed. I mean, he was bad. He was bad in week 1. That doesn't mean he'll be that bad again, but, like, he was bad. And not only was he bad, he's coming off an injury that directly affects his throwing ability. And we saw how that happened with Russell Wilson last year. And that doesn't mean it's going to be apples to apples. Like, I would be concerned about that. And I know the schedule's easy, but, like, that's something I don't just feel like Dak's back, all worries are put to bed.
So I think the excitement lies, and that's what's, like, the primary emotion is if Dak, like, I don't, like, the first half Dak last year, like, the Dak for the first half of the season was remarkable, but, like, you don't need that guy, right? Like you don't, like, again, like, they're, like, people are saying, like, oh, imagine the Broncos if like the offense was, like, good. You don't need to be, like, good to be, like, a super elite team right now. Like, if you're the Cowboys, like, and I don't think defense is sustainable in general, but so, like, if Dak comes back and is, and I don't mean the word average, like average NFL quarterback. I mean, like, average as far as, like, baseline for what we know Dak Prescott to be. Like, he's the average version of himself. I like that. This is one of the best teams in the NFL.
Percentile, like 50%.
Right. Dak. So, like, if he's just that, and, like, realize that's still a difficult thing to be, then this is one of the best teams in the NFL. obviously if he's worse, that, makes you feel worse. If he's better, that makes you feel all the better. But like, that's where I think all the excitement lies. James Washington still has to come back. A lot of Cowboys fans are like hyped about that. I'm just kind of like, well, whatever. I guess if you put value in Tyron Smith coming back, I still will believe that when I see it. I guess what I'm concerned about is this defense can be beat. Like it's not just like they can have the most talent in the world and they might, whatever, it's fine, but they could be beat. Like, and maybe you want to say like, oh, well, nobody else has Jalen Hurts. Like, I mean, whatever, but like, you're probably going to have to play him again. Like, you're definitely going to have to play him on Christmas Eve, but like, what if you play him in the playoffs? What if you play him in the playoffs? What do you play him in the NFC Championship game? And like, if you get into a like line of thought where you're like, oh, well, Dak will just outscore them. It's like, well, then you're just who you used to be. You know what I mean? Like, you're supposed to be evolved. I will say, I do trust, and I know you roll your eyes at this, but I do trust Mike McCarthy and his staff, to figure this out.
Me too. I trust him too, RJ.
Look, this is where, and like, I mean, like, you can disconnect yourself from the like joke here if you're an Eagles fan and take these words seriously from me, because I would not lie to you. All right. The Cowboys of old, and just because you're better than Jason Garrett's Cowboys does not make you amazing. To be clear, like just because
real quick on Jason Garrett, I said this to you in Slack. When he picked the Eagles and said "Fly Eagles Fly," I never felt more worried about the Eagles losing the game than that moment.
Right. That was a weird. I actually think that like Garrett was like trying to like reverse jinx himself. You know what I mean? Like I really believe that, and that's not like out of loyalty. I just think like that's who he is. But anyway. So like I'm not trying to give Mike McCarthy a parade or a statue because he's better than Jason Garrett, but the Cowboys of old, they look at the house money they have in the locker room at halftime, right? And they say, you know what? We're going to go 4-1 with Cooper Rush, and we're totally fine with that. You know what I mean? We're good. Let's get back home. Let's beat the Lions and the Bears. Let's get to our bye. I give them a lot of credit. And I know Lane Johnson was out. Like, you know what I mean? All these things are relevant, but to your point, Tyron Smith is out. Dak is out. All these things. That is a little bit of fight, or whatever you want to call it, whatever cliche, that they have not had in the past. And so I do trust them to figure this out. I do trust Dak. I'm very anxious to see him, obviously, but I'm worried about the defense, because if Dak doesn't come back and is like Super Saiyan Dak Prescott God mode, then you're going to need this defense. And it was shown on Sunday night that they can be beaten Monday through Saturday by a coaching staff that does enough work.
I want to read some of the responses to the tweet that I tweeted out, because I think that's relevant here and important to do.
Can I say one thing very quickly?
Yeah.
So I tweeted out, and this happens sometimes, I'm sure you've been caught by this, where people respond to your tweet after the fact and they don't know the moment you tweeted it. Okay. So
I hate that. Yeah, it's the worst.
So
look at the timestamp. There's literally a timestamp on the tweet.
Right. And I'm sure a lot of listeners are people who responded to this tweet, and they won't find my answer or explanation satisfactory, but whatever. I tweeted out, so you had talked about on our live show, what was the special ceremony thing that you thought was the bat signal or whatever that was like 2 minutes before kickoff? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
But it
ended up being Meek Mill.
Right. So I tweeted out in that moment when it was Meek Mill, something like, the Eagles are pulling out all the stops, something like that. Like, this is, makes sense because this is the Super Bowl. Like, but because they like, and I'm not saying like no NFL game has like a pregame show or anything like that, but it was based on Meek Mill. Like, so many people interpreted it like based off of them like trying hard and saying like that me saying the Eagles trying hard was like them. It was nothing to do with like the game. It was the Meek Mill performance. So
it's also your bit too. Anyway, it's like not like a full take. It's a bit, but not to defend you, but I mean, it's just true. I mean, it is a bit by you.
BLG comes to RJ's defense. Interesting. All right.
But it is silly it's silly that you're like, oh, Nick Sirianni said, oh, how about them Eagles? That's so
I want to get to that, but let's get to your tweet first.
He can say that they beat him. It doesn't matter if it's not original.
Do you want to get to that now, or do you want to get to your tweet?
No, I want to get to the tweet because at Incog Brian, a loyal listener, Schrodinger's Cat Toys, their display name on Twitter, I'm throwing a flag on the weak bet payout by RJ. Have to Sharpie the shirt at least. A tape piece of paper is the weakest of sauce. I did say that was okay for you to wear, in part because, I mean, what else are we going to do? I have to get, like, I'm on a time crunch, so we have to record this podcast at the time, and you started it live, so it's not like I really had much of an option. I feel like practically it does make sense that you do this because, I don't know, like, wait,
you need to explain things more to the podcast audience, because not everybody's like seeing what you're seeing. So
RJ is wearing. Did we talk about this?
The bet was the bet was twofold. Well, now that the Cowboys have lost, I have to write an article saying why the Eagles are the best team in the NFC, and I was going to do that, but Brandon needed to record this early, not to throw you under the bus, birthday boy. But so that is still happening, and Brandon will share it on Bleeding Green Nation, and you can all enjoy it, and that's fine. That just hasn't happened yet. We have jobs, we have things to do. That's part of our job.
That's part of what I was going with here. Like in terms of you getting a T-shirt. Like I know you have a kid. I have it's hard to sometimes get a thing.
So what I had said, and I should have planned ahead, but I was going to get like a plain white T-shirt and write mimic Nick Sirianni shirt from last year that said "Beat Dallas." I added the "They did it" part. I didn't have to do that. I just rubbed it in a little bit more. But I have a piece of paper that I taped in my shirt. But I did it nice and big and made it center like in the camera.
You can see it. That's what I wanted. And honestly, if you did it on a T-shirt and it looked worse, then I wouldn't be happy with that. I just wanted it to be front and center. I'm not going to defend you. I'm going to defend my decision to allow it. We also have RJ's Halloween costume this year is going to be an Eagles fan. Right now, he's probably crying about I
swear to God, Nick didn't wear the highlighter as like an FU to me. Like I really believe that in my heart of hearts that like the one piece of satisfaction I could have gotten, he took away.
He does listen to the podcast. I'm looking. You can see the excuses and rationalizing forming on his lips. So that's a good call out by Birds fan in Kansas City. And then I don't know how this one is in here, but at Chewy the dog tweeted a screenshot of you saying "good win" by the Eagles. I don't know what the context of that is because they cropped out the timestamp, but I don't know if that's edited. But I just like that.
Did you have something else? Oh, you were talking. So these were the replies to your tweet that you were talking about.
Yes, the tweet. Okay. The screenshot of you.
Oh, I thought you wanted to talk about a tweet about the game. Like,
no.
Okay, this was just trolling. Okay, so last thing, and then we can move on, I guess, since we've spent 35 minutes on this. Although I'm sure that it's not enough for some. But look, I know a lot of people were looking forward to this. I'm trying very hard on my end to deliver my one thing, and I actually say this from a point of respect. Nick Sirianni, so first of all, I talked about on Monday Football Monday on the SB Nation NFL show. I don't know if you saw the Seahawks after they beat the Cardinals. They tweeted out Pete Carroll edited over the Cliff Kingsbury photo of him in his house or whatever from the virtual draft.
Yep.
And it's like, dude, this joke is old. Like this. How many people have done versions of Cliff on the couch? You know what I'm saying? How many people have superimposed their face? Like it's an old and tired joke. Like roast, drag. Destroy your division rivals, but do it in a clever way. Be Brandon Gowton. Brandon Gowton is always finding one of my favorite Brandon Gowton headlines of all time was when Jason Witten unretired. What was it? It was like Cowboys hire failed commentator, like whatever. Like,
old man commentator. Yeah,
exactly. Live in the moment. Be smart. Be creative. I'm just asking for ingenuity here. So that being said, Eagles fans, drag us. I'm totally fine with it. But the like VHS line again, like let's just inspire some more creativity here. Like I'm challenging your level of trolling. That being said, how many teams have beaten the Cowboys in the last 30 years and said, how about them insert
How many coaches have done it?
A lot of people.
Name some.
Like, and the other thing is like, Eagles fans, chief among people, like to be like, oh, stop living in the past. Like, why? Like the Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl in 30 years. Like, why are you out here? Like, why are you out here living off of this line? And here's the thing: Nick Sirianni just dog walks the Cowboys. Nick Sirianni doesn't need to be like flexing. And I was prepared to come here and say Nick Sirianni completely learned his lesson when he wore the shirt that my sign imitates right now. All right, and I thought it was silly, but it was justified, and he has the results to prove his process out in saying like, and I give him respect for accountability, right? And you said he listened to the fans, he listened to the team, that wearing the shirt was not a good idea, kind of blew up in his face, whatever. He called it stupid on his part. With you all the way, but dude, don't like. It felt like the same guy that wears the Philly shirts and the Sixers shirts, like trying to be the coach that Philly wants them to be, like cussing at the end of the game, like just felt like, okay, the game is in hand. Let me flex my narrative muscles and do my catering to the fan base so they can love me. And like saying, how about the Eagles? Like, again, dude, come up with something better. Like you just beat the crap out of them. You have the best team in the NFL right now. You are undefeated. Like that was the one lame thing that Nick Sirianni did the whole time.
How many Eagles coaches have said that you can remember?
You know why Doug Peterson is a baller? Because he didn't have to say that. Doug Peterson just like walked the walk. I mean, and that's why I am still afraid of Doug Peterson. Like, I mean, this was a little brother move, and it was a shame because he had a big brother performance the entire time.
You're just so hurt by it.
No,
Sirianni had every right to curse out the Cowboys.
When 50 million people have done it for the last 30 years?
And that was loser energy from the Cowboys, by the way. And okay, I don't know the full context of why Jason Kelce got tackled, but it was not a good look, I will say, for the Cowboys to be doing that after they clearly had lost. That was like some sore loser shit right there, I will say.
If you don't want to like bag on Sirianni for the cussing, which followed that was the process. Fine, whatever. I'm cool if he's defending his guy. By all means, like in that
that's
case,
who he is.
Like,
that's not inauthentic. That is not inauthentic.
No,
that is him.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm willing to believe that with regards to that moment. But the how about them Eagles thing, that's front running to me. That's placating to the fans. Like, dude, just be happy that you're a successful coach. Like, you don't need every single Eagles fan to love you.
Well, whatever. I think Sirianni deserves a lot of credit for this win, by the way, in part because I think a key point you're missing about why he said that was a mistake last year when he wore that shirt is because he said it's about us. It's about playing for each other. It's not about
saying how about them Eagles is not about you. Then it's you're making it about the Cowboys.
It's a fun moment. It's a throwaway moment after a game. It's not it was not his message in front of the team.
It was a masterful night that he didn't
like as he's walking into the locker room.
It there needs to be like some level of creativity. Say something new. He should have said something. He should have said something about what DeMarcus Lawrence said. That would have been funny. That would have been clever. Like
DeMarcus Lawrence, by the way, who got bad luck for him. It doesn't count unless you play us. I mean guess what? Jalen Hurts put his best game of any quarterback.
To be fair, DeMarcus Lawrence talked about Tom Brady and the Bucs before week 1 too. Like that's just kind of his thing. Like
I know it's his thing, but like he didn't back it up. So like not the.
But
best
he did back it up against the Rams. He talks every week. Like that's just kind of who he is.
He didn't back it up by his play too, by the way, because he did not have his best game. And there are some clips out there of Jason Kelce like freaking putting him on his butt, just like bullying him and making him look bad. So I really enjoyed that too.
We need to get to the Giants, but my peace offering here is Cowboys fans, Eagles fans. Let's retire VHS jokes, Santa jokes, batteries, all like, you know what I mean? Like, let's challenge ourselves to higher levels of creativity and come up with new things for new generations to enjoy that still instill and spark the same levels of hatred and disgust.
But not like the San Diego Padres videos that are going around.
Oh, God,
if you haven't seen those on Twitter, look at like a Philly fans Twitter account because and I retweeted one and they're so bad. They're awful.
I'm asking
for going to the World Series. It's a lock. Like that's the worst vibes I've ever seen.
I'm asking for good content, to be clear, but just new content. That's
don't make a cheesy rap video. It's
a pretty low bar to clear. Okay, let's take a break, hear a word from our sponsors, and then we'll talk about the 5-1 New York Giants. Welcome back. The Giants just will not let the Eagles have a moment. No. Every single team in the NFC East won in week 6, except for the Dallas Cowboys. In fact, if we dismiss the Commanders, which we're kind of doing, Carson Wentz had his surgery. He's gonna miss the return trip to Philly. I know you're bummed. But
that is a bad development for the Eagles in multiple ways, but
I actually think this is a bad development for the NFC East, but this is the Giants moment. So that being said, the 3 teams at the top, probably all playoff teams, right? Like if we had to pick playoff teams right now, I think we're both picking all 3 of them. Again,
I said part of that is ahead last week, like Giants are making a wild card and Stats is like, I'm like, have you seen the NFC?
What is You know what Stats also poo-pooed was me saying that the Falcons had some very good vibes going with their throwback uniforms. He was like, who cares? Throwback uniforms. What happened? Falcons dropped the Niners.
Stats catching. Oh, sorry. No, it was Pete earlier. I thought I was trashing Stats. I'm like, he's catching a lot of strays.
A lot.
But it's fine. They don't listen.
The Falcons should wear those uniforms all the time, by the way. The gold stripe on the side is just incredible. But anyway, so the top 3 teams of the NFC East have 3 losses between them. Obviously, the Eagles don't have any. 2 of those losses are to each other because the Giants obviously lost to the Cowboys and the Cowboys lost to the Eagles. The lone loss of the top 3 teams in the NFC beast came to the Buccaneers and Tom Brady. Holy crap. Look at this.
I will apologize to the Giants for fans
not believing the way I did. Yeah.
I mean, which you backed off of. You predict them to win the division because you got caught up in a moment, and then you instantly backed off of that.
But there were things to get caught up in. Like that's what this season is kind of.
Well, I was also, but I think we've been consistent on that. I think you and I have been probably about level in terms of like where we actually expected the Giants to be. I don't think we've disagreed on them very much, which is funny because you get a lot of Giants fans who are like, you guys don't give enough love to the Giants. I think we've been very positive on them, especially relative to others.
Do you agree that the Packers are not this kingmaker? Like, good for the Jets. Like, enjoy your win, Jets. You know what I mean? And that was at Lambeau. It's a little bit different, but still, like, not a kingmaker sort of thing. But after this Ravens win, like, okay, now you're a little bit real. And I know the Ravens are like kings of choking away leads and stuff like that. No, it's still, this is a high quality win. I've said this to Ed Valentine on the SB Nation NFL show, but I feel like every week the Giants have the best one they've had in a decade.
Well, it's also a low bar.
Right.
There's a lot of opportunities for that. I will say I apologize to the Big Blue View listeners, the Giants fans, that we didn't talk about the Giants second. Obviously, that wasn't just going to make sense with the context of the Eagles-Cowboys game going forward. If the Giants are second, and the NFC will talk about them second. We will adhere to that moving forward, but it just didn't work out this week. But, shout out to the Giants. They're allowed to have their fun. I still don't fully buy them, and I don't think you do either. I mean, that being said, I have them, I think, 8th in my power rankings. I moved them up. They are a respectable team.
They're number 5 for me.
Okay. They're a team that they're not, but they're not. It's weird because they're a team that hangs around. They're tough in a given game, but they're also not a scary team. Right? No one is scared of getting blown. All these games are 1-score games. And I was going to say sustainably. That's not the word I was looking for. Historically, over a longer span of time, these 1-score games are not sustainable. You're not going to win all of them. You're going to get bad luck at some point. You're not going to get the breaks. You're not going to get Lamar Jackson. I mean, the Giants won this game and deserved to win. I believe that. At the same time, Lamar Jackson gave the game away. It was pretty bad. He just that's not what Lamar is typically going to do. And I say this as someone who has criticized Lamar. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I wasn't shocked that the Giants won this game because I watched this one full. And the vibe, I love vibes. By the way, RJ, check this out. Is this not the perfect thing made for me? Have you seen
those?
These?
Are mints?
It's gum. It's Sour Patch Kid flavored gum.
But it's Trident. So
Trident.
It's meant to be some sort of mint. No, it's Trident Sour Patch Kids vibes.
Yes.
Look, I'm just saying, the purpose of that is to make your breath smell better. Ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, it's not minty flavor, obviously, but anyway. But the vibes were working in the Giants. The Giants have the vibes going for them right now. I'll say it. I will give them that. I will certainly credit them that.
That's all Brian Daboll.
Dable deserves a lot of credit. I thought Daniel Jones didn't have the sexiest stat line, 19 and 27, 173, 6.4 average. He had 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a 12.1 passer rating. So certainly it's not it's a good pass. It's a good stat line, but he didn't even pass for 200 yards, but he looked legitimately good. I was watching a lot of his passes and I don't think he ever really put the ball in harm's way. And I think that's something that Ed Valentine did touch on the SB Nation NFL show with you and Pete, is that
he hasn't done it all season. Ed said, yeah.
Yeah. He did have a fumble, but that was at the end of the first half when they were trying to do a Hail Mary. So that's a big deal. The fact that he's not turning the ball over anymore is massive. And I just thought he made a lot of high quality throws. It wasn't even just good simple throws. He just kept executing and didn't make mistakes. And that goes a long way. And it's not like he has a great receiving core to work with right now. You know what I mean? Look at all the
big things have missed. Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard's out. I mean, I'm totally with you. They're going to be New York football's back. I mean, we'll see what happens to the Yankees tonight. Let's do the look at their schedule game. All right, so the Giants are 5-1. They are at Jacksonville this week, the Tom Coughlin Bowl. So Giants win or loss?
I think they drop one of the next two in either Jacksonville or Seattle.
That Seattle game, that is a fun game all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Yeah. Giants at Seattle, I would have never thought that would have been the case. But I'm fine. So they're 6-2 at the bye. Be super thrilled, be pumped. Okay, coming out of it, Houston, dub, right?
Yeah, it's at home. Yeah.
So they're 7-2. Then week 11, the week before Thanksgiving, they have the Detroit Lions. By the way, I think I'm ready to say I've been ready for a while. I have this take where it's nobody gets more credit for losing than Dan Campbell does. It's oh, well, they lost and they were really in it, so good for
hasn't
the
even
Lions.
Been the case this year. That's not even the case anymore.
You were the person who said that they could be this year's Lions, right? The Giants, they're better.
Yeah, I was wrong. They're better.
What do you know?
The good version of last year's Lions.
So I think we obviously think it's dumb to assign wins to one person, whether it's the quarterback, whatever. But if you're going to assign them to one person, the coach is obviously kind of a good one to do that for. Again, it's still a stupid practice, but Brian Daboll already has more career wins as an NFL head coach than Dan Campbell. So good for him. So we have them at 7-2 through Houston. We both think they beat the Lions.
Man, we just crapped on the Lions, so I guess we have to.
8-2, then at Dallas on Thanksgiving. I know you're going to be silly, but the Cowboys already beat them, and Dak will.
I think they'll lose. I don't think so. They're still again. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I legitimately don't think they're ready to hang with the big boys. They're not.
Right.
Those receiving talent issues. These issues are going to show up.
But if you're 8-3, that's not saying you're not a big boy. You know what I mean? That's so okay. 8-3.
Well, I think the big boys are. It's a very exclusive tier. I think it's the Chiefs. It's the Eagles.
So that kicks off
Bills right now.
That Thanksgiving Day game at Dallas kicks off 4 divisional games in a row for them. So we had them at 8-3. Washington the next Sunday, dub, right?
Although I will say, if there's ever a team to not like be actually good but can win the Super Bowl, it's the New York Giants.
9-3 through Washington. We both have them losing at Philly. Or sorry, that's at home. So that puts them. I mean, maybe
I have that as the first Eagles loss actually that game.
Okay, so maybe you're willing to like conservatively split the series between the Giants and Eagles. And for what it's worth, the Eagles did lose there last year. And that was against Joe Judge. So that puts them at 9-3.
I think they lose one of the Commanders games.
Okay, fine. But then the other games to end the season for them are at Minnesota, which
that's a loss.
I believe in them, and then Indianapolis, which I know they
had
a cute little win against the Jaguars, but the Colts remain frauds.
And then that Week 18 game might not mean anything. Eagles play host the Giants,
right? But that could benefit them,
right? I'm saying it might not mean anything for Philly. Yeah,
good for the Giants. I mean, it's annoying that they're now like a problem. You know what I mean? They're like something you got to pay attention to.
They're a tough team. They hang around, play smart football, take care of the ball. They're scary in terms of like what they could be next year if they really get this offseason right, and they have a front office now that can. They're a scary team. I still think the Saquon thing could work against them because of the contract. If they
he's the best running back in the NFL right now. I mean, I know Nick Chubb is Nick Chubb, but like I would take Saquon and I wouldn't be you know what I mean? Like if we'd had a draft and I landed Saquon, I would be very, very
confident. Yeah, but I think the floor there scares me still because I think he could get hurt and that would be that would like mess up their offense too in a big way. So I think that can be a big undoing still, but they do have a lot of things going for them. And I think Giants fans deserve it. They've stuck with this team.
Super impressive thing to me is like the path I outlined for the Giants was because we said, like you said, we've been level. We said that they're like Daniel Jones is an athlete, right? Like he has athletic traits and athletic qualities that can be molded into, a functional quarterback. We've seen that happen many times. And so we thought like, man, what if like it's a long shot, but what if like he has a Josh Allen type bump with Brian Dable? That hasn't happened. You know what I'm saying? And they're still, the way they are. Like that's impressive. Like I thought that was the only way that they could potentially do something like this. But to their credit, they're finding ways. They're benefiting, but I mean, you make your own luck, and I think that well-coached teams survive the chaos that like crazy NFL games bring. I thought the Ravens were that. I mean, I still think the Ravens were that, but maybe they're just, a little bit more Raven-y than usual.
Yeah, Lamar, not the MVP. I think we can say at least. Well, I mean, not the favorite right now. Certainly,
I think
that kind of
right now, if the season ended today, MVP is Josh Allen. I'm sorry to Jalen Hurts. And
no, I think most people would agree it's Josh Allen.
Right. And I think Coach of the Year, again, this is not a shot at Nick Sirianni, but it's Brian Dable. Like, and it will help him that he's doing it for the Giants of all teams. But man, alive. I mean,
the first year bias seems to be pretty strong. And it's also more impressive from a standpoint of their, finding their footing and everything. I will say, I think underrated thing about the Giants is their defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale. Mm-hmm. Like that was a really smart hire by them in terms of
not to pat us on the back, but we said that day.
I know. Yeah. But like, if you're the Ravens, he wasn't the problem with the defense last year from the standpoint of they were so hurt. They were like the most injured defense in the league. They were like, playing these 6-string cornerbacks. It was like everyone's hurt. Like he was the big reason they were bad. Like, no, like they needed to get healthier. And that was a big hire by them as well. They have a good coaching staff on the whole. It's not just Dable is my point. Like their defensive coordinator is good. Mike Kafka seems to be doing a good job with the offense, given the limited talent they have. So yeah, it's just they're a smart organization again, which is that's regardless of their record, that is scarier than anything.
Well, and they were a smart organization the entire time with limited quarterback play. You know what I'm saying? Like if like they have been a thorn in the sides of both the Cowboys and the Eagles in the past with very average quarterback play. So if they can get just good, not even like elite, it's just good quarterback play, that also is a frustrating thing to consider. I have two final things and then we can wrap. Are you ready? One is Cowboys, one is not. But technically this is when we're supposed to talk about the Cowboys because we just got to the Giants.
Talk about the Commanders.
I mean, I think we already gave the Commanders some love because we did the live show during the Commanders game, but we'll see how things go for the Commanders this week.
What do you want to say? And then I want to briefly touch on the Commanders because I have some thoughts.
So I don't know if you saw this. I know you have already done your power rankings for Bleeding Green Nation. I don't know who you all curate in yours, but for us at Blog of the Boys, we do NFL.com, ESPN, USA Today, Yahoo, CBS Sports, The Athletic, and Sports Illustrated. So I'm just
mine.
What's that?
Coward. So you use mine, coward.
Well, I don't have yours by the time we have them out, and I'm not going to use every SB Nation site. You know what I mean? Anyway, so the NFL.com took the Cowboys up from 10 to 6. ESPN dropped them from 5 to 6. For what it's worth, I dropped them from 6 to 7. USA Today upped them from 5 to 4. Yahoo kept them at 4. CBS kept them at 6. The Athletic bumped them from 7 to 6. Sports Illustrated dropped them from 7 to 10. So, but I mean, I thought the NFL.com rank was low last week, like 10. You know, I'm not saying like, oh, best team in the NFL, but that was still a little bit low. So maybe
it's hard to find 9-bit teams.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like maybe the big rise there was due to that. But I thought it was amazing that USA Today bumped them, that Nate Davis bumped them from 5th to 4th. The only teams he has ahead of the Cowboys are the Chiefs, the Bills, Chiefs, and Eagles. I think in that order. I might be wrong, but those are the 3 teams. My thought was like, so like we're super attached to this, and that's why I think the mixtape is awesome, right? Because, and that's what people say. By the way, it was such a great and fun week for the mixtape. We love you all. We're very excited. The show
listeners made it a great week.
This show is one of the more fun things that we do. So we're very excited to see how we continue to grow and develop and evolve. By the way, tweet at Michael Kist NFL to tell him what evolutions you want to see to the NFC East mixtape. But I do think, and that's our jobs, but I think it's interesting to see like the national perspective on our teams. And so I think we both saw some flaws in the Cowboys and, the Eagles, whatever. But, I think we both also saw some like signs of positivity and things like that. But I thought it was fascinating that so many, and these are just the ones that we curate, that so many outlets bumped them. NFL.com, USA Today, and The Athletic. And then they were status quo at both Yahoo and CBS. Like, that's amazing to me. Like that so many people in unison and it wasn't like this game was just like buried in the 12 o'clock window or, on at the same time as Bills Chiefs. No, like the whole world watched this and everybody kind of agrees. I thought that was really interesting.
I think you have to put them outside of the top 5. I have them at 6 in mine. So still, respect, but also part of that is just, they aren't good teams. Like,
so you have them higher than me. I'm at 7.
7. So who do you should put the Giants over them? Did you not?
I have the Giants at 5. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you did. I have the Giants right below them at 7. I have the Vikings. So I'll just read you my top 6. Bills 1. They're first in DVOA and point differential, but like I think the Eagles are right there, though. I think they are right there. Eagles are 2nd. Chiefs are 3rd. I think those 3 are all also in their own
some amalgamation because I have Bills, Chiefs. I have Bills, Eagles, Chiefs. Those are my top 3.
Yeah, some kind of tier there, and then it's the next tier for me that drops down. The Vikings, only 1 loss, and it's to the Eagles. And then, they look a little shaky. I'm not like full in on them, but whatever. They're certainly the 2nd best team by far in the NFC.
So we both have them at 4. And I have the Giants at 5.
The Ravens still, because obviously I just talked down on them and Lamar, and they lost to the Giants, but they've also had these their win probability has been so high, like late in these games.
The regression will benefit them, like when they exactly.
They're going to be fine. Although
they're my number 6 for what it's worth, but I couldn't put them above the Giants after Sunday. So
Bengals are still hanging around in the NFC North, so maybe not so fine. But we'll see. Anyway, not that podcast. I want to get to the Commanders quickly because significant news that Carson Wentz might miss at least 4 games. If he does go on IR, that would cement him being out for the Eagles game, which is bad news for the Eagles for multiple reasons. Number 1, I think you can make the case that Taylor Heineke makes the Commanders I don't know if their ceiling is as high, theoretical ceiling, but I think it does raise their floor, just in part because his rushing ability. Wentz can't move around anymore. Heineke can move away from pressure and kind of make some things happen on the run. Wentz can't do that anymore.
It also gets rid of the thing. I don't in any way think that that Brett Rypien is a better quarterback than Russell Wilson. I'm not saying that Russell's awesome, but right now you got to get rid of the thing. You know what I mean? If you're the Broncos, you know what I'm saying? You got to get rid of the thing to just exactly. That's what I'm saying. I know Russell has this hamstring injury now, but you got to get rid of the thing. And Carson Wentz is, because of Ron Rivera, the thing. And some of obviously Carson's past. Himself. I don't think that Carson has done anything wrong in the way he has in the past in Washington. You know what I mean? I think as far as his time in Washington, he's just been a good soldier. But
it's not true. Yeah. He's the same person though. He's the same not leader, and that's an issue. Any case, he's out. It also is probably good news for Washington from the standpoint of I don't know that Carson Wentz plays again this year, because if Taylor Heineke played well, then you obviously keep him in, and if he sucks, then you just write it out. Howell, and it's a lost season. And why would you put Wentz back in when all that does is serve to raise his snap count to the point where the Commanders are going to have to give up a second-round pick instead of a third-round pick, and the Commanders are already so far behind and are in a very competitive division with 3 teams ahead of them. It's not like, well, the division's open, so we can still make a run at it or run at a wild card. Like, no, you can't. And you've already lost to the Cowboys, and you've already lost to the Eagles. So I think it's actually kind of bad news for the rest of the East, and actually kind of good news from a long-term standpoint from the Commanders. Although in reality, there is really no good long-term news for the Commanders as long as Dan Snyder is there. Who do they have next, by the way? Commanders have the Packers at home. Maybe a winnable game. Packers bad, but also very losable. Then they get the Colts in Indy. They play the Vikings at home, and then they get the Eagles in Philly. That's their next 4.
I'm so bummed that he won't beat the Colts.
Record in those games.
So they're 2-4 right now.
2-4 right now. They, by the way, they did not even outplay the Bears. Like, they beat the Bears, but they did not outplay them. Like, the Bears outgained them. The Bears went 0-3 in the red zone because Justin Fields is bad and missed a wide open touchdown. Like, that was not a win to be happy about. The Commanders posted a victory celebration video after that game. Like, that's pathetic. Like, they did not do anything. They were the less worse team.
I think so. Their next 4 games that you talked about. By the way, that Philly game is Monday Night Football.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's a Manning cast game. I haven't been in on the Manning cast this year. But whatever. I know this sounds strange, but like, of these next 4 games, I think the Packers one's the most winnable one for Taylor Heineke. You know what I mean? Like,
could be. I don't think that's crazy. I mean, the Colts. I still don't buy the Colts.
I mean, we've mentioned vibes. The vibes are awful in Green Bay. Like, the vibes are really bad. I mean,
all time. Tampa and Green Bay, man. These old quarterbacks.
Well, it's almost like these old quarterbacks who made everything about themselves, and you know what I mean, took total like center of attention. You know, maybe maybe not the best idea, but okay. So I mean, they're losing at least 2 of these games, right? They're losing to Philly, they're losing Minnesota. I don't know. I mean, I'm never betting on the Colts. I'm never betting on those frauds. So I really don't know how that's going to go. Okay, so I have one last thing, and then I don't know if you have anything else. So I've tried very unsuccessfully to start like an award or a thing here on the Mixtape every week, but I think I found one that can stick. So we, by the way, always encourage people to subscribe to your preferred team's podcast network. Leave a rating, write a review. Go to a different one, leave a rating, write a review. You can say whatever you want, but just leave a 5-star rating. And go subscribe to the SB Nation NFL show. If you like listening to Brandon and I together, every Friday we're on with our good buddy Rob Stats-Greer. We preview every single NFL game. We also react. And you have to wear that
Thursday night, by the way. I don't know if you remember that part of the bet, but I said I do remember that. Okay.
I'm gonna throw this one away and just do a new one if that's fine. Like, I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, the tape's gonna like wear off, so I'll make a new one. Don't worry.
Well, tweet at RJ. If enough Eagles fans bully you, you have to do the shirt for Friday.
I just don't know that I'll have time to get the shirt. Like, it's just, you mentioned it. We like,
if you want to let
your birthday's
down,
today,
that's on you.
Your birthday's today. My birthday's this week. You know what I mean? So like, it's a busy week. You know, that's all I'm saying. But at the very least, I will have this signed. Did you stretch the hoodie out? Oh, it's finally hoodie season. Like, I mean, it's so great. But so my petition is that we offer one NFL thing as a preview of the look ahead to encourage people to go subscribe to the Explanation NFL show. We touch on something that is not necessarily NFC East.
No, I disagree.
Well,
it's the NFC. It's the only division that matters, baby.
Okay, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Then this is a one-time thing. One-time thing. So the NFL owners meetings are happening right now, actually, while we're on. And an NFL spokesperson said that they anticipate the Sunday ticket deal to be on pace to be done by the calendar year, and that it is a product that is ripe for innovation. There have been a lot of conversations about Sunday ticket going to like Apple or some sort of streaming platform or whatever the case may be. We obviously watch a lot of football. Football is our life. The NFL is our life. So like, what are your thoughts as a consumer? Like, because everybody's kind of in this boat, in this pickle. Like, what do you do? What do you get? Like, this is an interesting conversation to have.
In terms of like the service, like what do you
hope for? What do you hope happens with the Sunday ticket? Because I don't think any of us wanted to stay on
realistically, or like in ideal perfect world. I mean, I'm expecting to be disappointed
with an injection of reality, right? Like, I think it's fair to presume it's going to end up on some sort of streaming platform. Do you want it to end up on like an Apple TV? Like, is that the like, if it leaves Direct TV, if something changes, what's the best, most practical change?
Something I already subscribe to would be really nice, I would say. But I don't know. I don't really have a lot of big thoughts on this because I don't like watch. I watch the games locally, or I'm there for the home games. So I don't like, this doesn't impact me as much. So I can't really speak to a ton of, I'm not out of market.
I'm not out of market either, but I mean, again, it's like somebody who watches it. Like, I think like Amazon Prime's been like as far as the distribution of the game, it's been fine. Like,
annoying though.
I mean, like, I'm not talking about the broadcast and the crew and everything like that, but like
not that, like that it's on a exclusive streaming. I just
well, that's what this is going to be. Like, then that's your take. That's your thought. Like, if you want it on Netflix, I mean,
something I have, something very convenient to me. Yes.
I think,
but also, like, I don't know. I mean, I guess a lot of people have Amazon, which, okay, fine. But, like, I don't know. It's just not even, I don't know. I don't have great thoughts on this.
Did you watch any,
many things?
Did you watch any of the MLB games on Apple TV this season?
No, I don't have Apple TV, so no.
I mean, this is
too much. This is the point of all of this. Is it's too much. Everything's going to be on something. It's like, how are people supposed to do this? Like, how are they supposed to subscribe to everything? That's like, that sucks. It's dumb.
I agree.
It's all about money. There's no,
of course
no
it is. Again, like, look, but like every single person is having this discussion, right? Like, what's best? What should I subscribe to? What should so that's what I'm saying. Like, we watch a lot of football, so I'm just getting your take on it.
Doesn't make sense. You need to be able to watch like games. Like, I just don't get it.
I will say
it doesn't seem like good for the health of the sport either. Like, you're making the game less accessible.
I actually think I disagree that it's less accessible, the ticket specifically, than it currently is. I don't have DirecTV, so I don't have the Sunday ticket. So I have Fubo. This isn't an ad. I just love it a lot. And so I have the red
discount code BTB 15%.
So no, but you can't do that at righteousfun.com for delicious craft jerky and built on.
Or BN 15% at righteousfun.com.
Yeah. Like when the Cowboys aren't playing, I watch the Red Zone channel with Scott Hansen, right? And when the Cowboys are playing, obviously I have that game, so I'm good to go. But I would what I don't like about the ticket, and I don't need the ticket in terms of like being able to watch like a Chiefs game that's out of market for me. But I don't like that you have to have DirecTV. You have to have a contract with them. You know what I mean? Like, so if it is on Apple TV, I do think that's better. I think if you're an Eagles or a Cowboys fan who lives somewhere not in market, I know Eagles fans hate those people. But like, I think this works out better for you for whatever cable service you do or don't have. Because if you don't have to be locked into a cable contract, I think that's the best way for this to be. I think that opens more doors for more people.
All right.
I'll give you the final word. It could be 3 words, 3 colors, 3 animal sounds, whatever you want, Brandon.
Well, you know I'm a man of many hats, RJ. So it's time that I change my hat to one I'm sure you will appreciate as you see my bald head very quickly. To
did you tell people? Did you tell people what Stats wanted you to do if the Eagles had lost?
Yeah,
that was too far.
I know. Well, I mean, I don't care. I'm not ashamed of being bald.
It's but that's a permanent thing. He wanted you to write it in Sharpie on your head. Like, that's a really, you would have had to have washed it. Like, that would have been complicated.
That was too much. What the heck, Stats? I mean, it's not like I'm making him like jump in a lake or anything. I did release Stats on that bet if the Eagles win the Super Bowl. Well, I didn't actually officially agree to that. I said I'm considering it. I will finalize that with him at some point. I just want to make him have to root for the Eagles, which I guess he doesn't care about a ton necessarily. Although I'd love to get to a situation where it's like Eagles 49ers championship game, and then he has to root for the Eagles if he doesn't want to jump in a lake.
I think he does care about the Eagles. Stats is kind of like this closet Eagles fan.
He is really, because he likes me because I'm great. Anyway, the Eagles hat is on. The Circa Survive Eagles hoodie is on because the Eagles beat the Dallas Cowboys and are still undefeated at 6-0. Can we hear, RJ? Will you do an Eagles chant for me?
No. I would have done it if you had made those the terms of the bet. I actually thought that the bet was going to be like I would have to sing the song or something like that. I would have rather.
That's what we did last year.
But this was much better. Like the sign thing and the article are totally fine. Like I would have not, because the song could live forever. Somebody could clip it.
Well, the article's going to be really good. I can't wait for that because
I'm a really good writer, right?
Well, I mean, in terms of like the Cowboys fans on BTB not understanding like the angle and the podcast, be like, what the hell is this? Or you're going to get emails because people do this all the time where like they don't get the context and they're going to be like, why are you praising the Eagles? You suck. This site sucks.
People all the time on every team site at SB Nation will they'll read the headline, scroll past the body of the article that has the answers to everything that they want to say.
Have you ever seen my pinned tweet?
Yes, I have. Please tell it to us.
No, you have to look at it. You have to go to my Twitter account.
On Twitter and Instagram at Brandon Gowton. On Twitter and Instagram
at tease,
RJ Ochoa. Actually, speaking of tease, this is the right way to end. Give people, Brandon, the birthday boy, 2 reasons why they should listen to the SB Nation NFL show on Friday between you, me, and Rob Stats Guerrera.
The 2 reasons are I'm there and that's all the reason you need.
Happy birthday to
Don't sing it. You're gonna get sued.
Happy
we don't have the rights.
birthday
We don't have the rights to this song. You know who owns this?
Happy birthday, dear Brandon.
I think it's Michael Jackson's legacy or estate.
Happy birthday to you. Yeah.